Alright, I'm going to give you a quick overview of this Sunco plasma cutter. Basically, it is a cut 50. You can see up there in the top corner. It's a cut 50, so that means it'll go up to about 50 amps down here. This is an air delay switch for your gun. So after you pull the trigger, you cut, you let off, it will blow air out for a while afterwards, and that's what that switch is for. It's the delay, short delay, long delay, so you blow more air out. This is your connections, your gun connection, your trigger connection, and then your grounding clamp. And here's your grounding clamp right here. And then you're going to put this on the piece of metal you're cutting, for the new beginners. I do recommend later on, I'm planning on getting a new grounding clamp for this thing. This is basically a cheap Chinese one. And it does the job, but I would like it to do better. Like it not to break all the time. And this clamp, this is probably a 10 gauge, maybe a little smaller, maybe like a 12, but I think it's around a 10. I like to get like a 6 gauge wire for this thing because it's just too small for what I need on this. I'm afraid of it burning it out or burning the tube. You got your air regulator over here. I usually run mine at about 60 psi, but depending on what you're cutting, I usually cut like a middle metal anywhere from quarter and under. You're going to want that. If you're cutting like really thin sheet metal, car metal and stuff, I'd turn it down to just about 40. Cutting anything bigger, go ahead and turn it up until it works right for you. So basically it's going to come in, come down, and go in down here. Basically you're supposed to mount this back here on the back on these 2 prongs. I decided to put it here because, well, I could see it better for one. So I had to walk all the way to the back of the unit and see what it's actually registering. I just look from the side. Also, you've got your power back here, which is one thing that I really don't like about this unit. You have to walk all the way to the back of the unit. Well, not really all the way, but you have to come from your job site, which is probably way out here somewhere, because it's got like a 15-foot cord on it. And you have to walk all the way back to the machine, and you can't just push it on the front of the machine. You have to walk all the way to the back and then click it off back here. So it's kind of irritating. Yeah, so that's your power switch. And why they put it back here is because, like over in England and maybe China, you have to have it only a few inches away from where your power goes into the unit. So they did that so they could sell it all around the world. So you got your power outlet here. You got your extra ground right here, the body ground to it, and runs down. With my unit, I kind of tried to save some money, and it works good for me. I got these cheap little plugs from Lowe's. They cost like $4 or $5 for it. You can probably even find it cheaper if you go to online somewhere or something. But I did it that way so I wouldn't have to get a heavy duty extension cord. If you go out and buy a heavy duty extension cord for 220, you'll have a 220 plug, which they usually, you don't have to go buy one either for like the wall, or sometimes you have to buy it directly for the cord itself. Sometimes they won't even come with it. You have to get your own ends. So that cut a lot of costs down, because a 220 end is like 10 or 15 bucks, and these are like $5. So do the math. I have to do 3 of them or 4 of them for the wall too. And this is actually a 110 cord. You can see 2 of them in there. So basically it's just say it's got 110 on this side and 110 on that side. Add them up and you got 220 right there. So this is basically a 220 cord now. I just got it wrapped up with electrical tape so you can feed it out in one line. And got the same style plug on the end. And I've been using this for probably, I actually got it, did it for a welder and stuff, and it's been working perfectly for me now. So yeah, I do recommend doing that, because that's going to probably save you, it's like $200 if you do it this way than getting an actual like 100-foot extension cord for your shop. You know, as long as you're not having to do it by code, you know, because the government, you know, they want to get all the money they can out of you and make it as hard as you can for you. So this way, if you're doing it yourself, you got your own little private shop, and you just want to save you like $200 or $300 just to make sure the machine actually works for you and does the job, I would recommend doing it this way, because you can get like one of these, you know, 200-foot cords for like, what, 40, 50, 60 bucks, and then you just put the ends on it, cut it in half, and you got, you know, a 100-foot cord immediately. So you can get, my shop's like 30 feet long, so basically I can get an extra, you know, if it's 100 feet, I can get like, I have to do the math real quick. Should have thought this through. I don't know, my brain. It's 70 feet. Okay, yeah, wow. You know, I just had a little brain freeze. I'm Biden. So yeah, we can get the 200-foot cord, let's say about 50, 60 bucks. Cut it in half, you got a 100-foot cord. You know, so then you just get the ends. So you're looking at me like 70 bucks. That's what you'd pay just for the cord itself, possibly. You know, probably even more, depending on what kind of gauge you get and how long you get. But I don't know if you get a 100-foot 220 extension cord for less than that. Because if you get the flexible kind of cord for 220, it usually goes way up in value. Yeah, so this is the Sunco. Like I said before, you're supposed to put them on these two mounts here, the regulator over there. But I didn't, because one, it blocks the fan, and two, like I said before, you could see it way easier. You don't have to come all the way to the back of the unit. Yeah, so I mean, I really have enjoyed this unit. Out of the box, it comes basically ready to do. You just have to get a plug. Don't forget the plug for the unit itself. It comes with about a 6-foot cord on her from the box. You do have to use your own third ground if you want it, and I just taped it fully right up against the original one and just put my own little end on it and just connect it to the third ground link on the plug-in there. And when you're buying this machine, you'll want to get the extra parts for it either during when you're buying it or try it out first. I recommend trying it out, and if you can find one that you can get, and if you're not happy with it, send it back. I recommend that, but sometimes you can't with these bigger machines. They don't want to get a bunch of machines back. Sometimes you can get a little bit off if you're not really happy with it. But I recommend getting the machine, testing it first, make sure that your shop can handle the power and stuff from this thing, because it's so powerful, to see if everything works good for you, because sometimes either your air is too little to keep up with the machine, and you'll have to get a bigger air compressor. And then sometimes if you got a really old shop from like the 70s or something, your actual power coming in is probably not efficient enough to run this. And like if you're running an air compressor at the same time and run all your lights in the shop, you know, I'm not sure, because this thing is pretty efficient on electricity, but it might overload some of y'all's small boxes, because I've got a pretty big box in my building. But if you've got a really old box with only a few little breakers in it, it might overload the system on it and just shut it down. So just check those things out first before you get one. Make sure you got an air compressor that you could put out a lot of CFF all the time. I would go and check Sunco out, and I think on the actual buying page they have a printout owner's manual that you can actually download and look through, and I'd look to see what exactly it would take to run this at full capacity. And then you could, if it's full capacity, they mean like cutting 1/2-inch steel all the time. So I'd say if you're even close to like the middle, you could probably cut decent, you know. So it's really up to you. And I just say get it if you think your shop can really handle it. Alright, so let's go into the parts. Basically, these are your electrodes. They go inside the gun, and basically they're grounding electrodes. This is really what starts the air reaction that for the plasma to come across and burn it off. If you touch down your gun and it just kind of arcs and sizzles but it never really starts plasma cutting, it's probably going to be this. You're going to have to change this out. Then these little caps go around that electrode, slide down it when you're putting it together, and I've got those little holes there in it. You can see that. Camera doesn't want to focus on it, but I've got those little air holes for the air to leak through to come down around that and start whizzing around it, and coming out your tip here. This is going to be your cutting tip. And that's what it should look like, brand new. And this is a short cutting tip. They have two different sizes. A short one, like this one, and they've got a longer, deeper one. The longer, deeper ones are nice if you're trying to, if you're getting in tight spots on cars. I kind of like to get some. But I already bought all these. And if you buy the longer ones, remember this, you're going to probably have to get long electrodes, because the electrode is supposed to sit down in there. And it has to be a certain distance from the end of the cap to the electrode for it to actually fire up. If you get a long cap and a short electrode, it's probably not going to start arcing for you and fire up. So it's one good thing to remember, because I think I bought some once, a long cap, and it wouldn't work. Because, like I said, here is the difference between them. If you're wondering, this is a long electrode, and that's a short electrode. And as you can blindly see, yeah, so make sure if you get a long cap, get a long electrode. If you get a short cap, get a short electrode. The actual little cylinders, I don't know why my camera not focusing. The little cylinders here, they don't really matter. They go with either one. Just make sure you get long electrodes for long caps, short electrodes for short caps. And the actual cover, they're all going to be basically the same covers. You can get a little different shapes and sizes for this, but they're all going to have pretty much the same screw and the same opening on the end for like all the cut 50s. So pretty much all the guns will take this, unless you go to like a professional grade and get out of like the cut 50s and stuff. The professional grades are different, but for all like the cut 50s, these cheap Chinese ones, they're all going to take this kind of caps, basically. So yeah. So that's pretty much all the stuff that you'll need, and you can get a bunch of these. Usually I just go on, instead of buying like the cap separate and this separate and that, they have a whole kit you could buy. This is basically one kit that I bought. It was like 100 piece or something like that, and you get all the little caps and electrodes and the tips and the covers for it, all of that in one little unit. Yeah, so it's a pretty good cost-effective way to cut metal. I'm really happy with it. I'm going to try it on, well, not try it, but I'm going to use it probably to rebuild a few of my old Chevy pickup trucks I've got sitting in the field right now waiting for rebuilding. And I'm really hoping, this thing's been working good for me for the last year and a half, 2 years. And, even if it burn out in the next few weeks or next year, the cost difference between this one and a professional grade, I believe this one here I paid for about $220, $250, somewhere in there. Professional grade, pretty much like this one, you're looking at like $400 to $700. So yeah, I mean it's a big price jump. Now probably they would last longer than these, but who knows? I mean, probably a lot of stuff that's in here might be in some of the almost pro grade ones, not the pro, but right underneath Pro. So, I mean, sometimes you can get a cheaper package with the same parts in it. Don't quote me on this. There, it might not be the exact same parts, but I mean, I've seen it a lot. I've took a few things apart, cheap and expensive, and sometimes they're almost the exact same parts in there. It's just the people putting them together care more, let's say. The people soldering on the boards, they solder better. They, Jim from China doesn't probably do as good a job as, George from an actual name brand company that is in China. You have people that don't really care and they're just or you have somebody that's really caring and going across and sorting every single thing and then going back and checking, make sure you've got the same ground and everything like that. So yeah, recommend it. Really good little unit for the small shops. Even if you're a big shop, you just want something to, for like newbies to take out to the, across the parking lot somewhere and just take it and cut stuff apart, in the junkyard and stuff. This one actually comes with a carrying strap, and they think you're going to be able to take this and carry it and go cut something with it. And I mean, I guess you can. If you have oxygen tanks, you could probably get a regulator for this thing, but I'm not sure how much really an oxygen tank would really carry this thing for that long. I mean, you'd have to be like refill. So, it might go a decent time. You might be able to throw it on the back of a truck with an oxygen tank and a 220 generator, and you might be able to go out in the junkyard and zip and cut all these parts off, that you need, that you don't want to take hours of unbolting. So yeah, it might be a really good way to do that too, if you're wanting to do that. So yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with the machine. I haven't had really any problems with it. Do recommend doing the cord that way. It just saves you a lot of money off the top. All the cords, your actual trigger mechanism might be different, because this one, basically whatever trigger and grounding thing is cheapest, that's what they go with. So that's how they keep the machine cost effective, is they just go with the cheapest manufacturer of these parts and some of the other internal parts probably. But it still is a really good machine for the costs that you're going to put out. I believe you could probably make it up in the first few jobs if you got real good paying job, not real good paying jobs, but if you got paying jobs like to put exhaust on and you want to go and just chop it out, this thing's perfect for that. I've done it a few times myself on my personal cars. You just start at the very top and just just on the inside and it just drops off. Yeah, pretty good little machine. I really have enjoyed it. Hope y'all go check it out. And go check out so thank you very much. Bye.